What's up YouTube, it's Shanti Hall here and welcome to part 2 of my NBA mock drafts. I'm assuming if you're here you've watched part 1, there I covered picks 1 through 5, if not the link's in the description. In this video I'm going to be covering picks 6 through 10 and it might take a while, so let's get right into it. So with the 6th pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the player I believe the Orlando Magic will select is Trae Young. Trae Young is a 6'2", 178-pound point guard who played for the University of Oklahoma this past college season. There he averaged 27.4 points, 8.7 assists, and 3.9 rebounds. He did this while shooting 42% from the field and 36% from behind the three-point line. As far as strengths go for Trae Young, he's easily the most gifted shooter in this draft class. He has an extremely quick release and is able to hit shots off the dribble or in catch and shoot situations. Because of this, I believe that he could be somewhat impactful in the NBA almost immediately. He's also an incredibly talented ball handler, and that just adds to his versatility offensively. The last strength I want to say for Trae Young is that he's a very talented passer. He's great at finding the open man no matter where they are, and the passes are always very precise. Moving on to weaknesses, currently Trae Young's biggest issue is that he's a liability on defense. He can eventually learn to become a smarter defender, but right now I believe his physical tools really limit him on that end of the floor. He just has a 6'3" wingspan, he's not very strong, and he's not very quick. And at his size, it definitely leaves some questions about how he'll adjust to the speed and physicality of the NBA game. One last problem I have with Trae Young is that at times he has very questionable shot selection. He takes some pretty deep, poor contested shots that'll probably land him on the bench in the NBA. Those are my biggest issues with Trae Young. Now on to why I think the Magic should draft him. The Magic should select Trae Young because he fills a need in their weakest position. They have no depth at the point guard position, but they have a ton of depth everywhere else. And to me at least, Trae Young is the best point guard in this class. Also, Trae Young has the highest offensive potential of any player in this draft, and the Magic need to gamble on that upside if they want to have any chance of making a jump in the near future. So that's my number 6 pick. The Orlando Magic select Trae Young. Now moving on to number 7. And with the 7th pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the player I believe the Chicago Bulls will select is Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. is a 6'10", 211-pound forward who played for University of Missouri this past college basketball season. Now before I tell you his stats, I'm just going to say he only played 3 games this season and 2 of them were injured. But for the season, MPJ averaged 10 points, less than 1 assist, and about 6.7 rebounds. He also shot 33% from the field, 30% from behind the three-point line, and 77% from the free throw line. Now I'm going to give you my strengths for MPJ, but I'm going to do so assuming that his back has healed as well as Dr. Sade has. With that being said, Michael Porter Jr.'s biggest strength is that he's a naturally gifted scorer. He's one of the better shooters in this class, he has great mechanics, and because of his height, he's able to shoot over smaller defenders. On top of that, he's a great finisher in traffic, and again, assuming his injury healed correctly, he's a well above average athlete that's good at finishing over defenders. He's also a very solid and aggressive rebounder, which will really help him because he's going to be playing some 4 in the NBA. Moving on to weaknesses, the biggest thing with MPJ is that back injury really makes him a gamble. Back injuries are extremely difficult to come back from, and his took him out for almost the entire college season. And even in the 2 games that he came back, he looked nothing like himself. Another issue I have with Michael Porter Jr. is that he's not that great of a ball handler. I believe he's going to have to drastically improve in this area of the game if he's going to reach his full potential as an elite scoring threat. Now on to why I think the Bulls should draft him. I think the Bulls are ready to try and be a competitive team again. And if Michael Porter Jr. is healthy, and if they're drafting him 7th overall, I'm sure he is, then he can be a major contributor to their offense either at the 3 or the 4 spot. Also, pairing him with Markkanen and Levine will create some really great spacing for this Bulls team. That's my number 7 pick, MPJ to the Bulls. Now moving on to number 8. And with the 8th pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the player I believe the Cleveland Cavaliers will select is Wendell Carter Jr. Wendell is a 6'9", 251-pound center who played for Duke this past college season. There he averaged 13.5 points, 2 assists, and 9.1 rebounds. He did this while shooting 56% from the field, 41% from behind the three-point line, 73% from the free throw line. When talking about Wendell's strengths, I think the biggest thing for him is how versatile he is as a big man. He's a great passer, not very flashy, but makes the right play most of the time. He also finishes well inside the paint and seems to have a few post moves that he's comfortable with. On top of that, he was able to step out and knock down shots from the college three-point line with at least some consistency. He's also an excellent rebounder, and I think he'll be able to contribute in that aspect of the game immediately. He's also a solid rim protector. He really anchored Duke's defense this season with 2.1 blocks a game. Now moving on to the negatives, I think one of the biggest things holding Wendell back is that he's not a very explosive leaper. He's already an undersized center, so I think that lack of explosiveness really limits his ceiling. He also really struggles to defend the perimeter and gets beat there very often. Despite his decent interior defense, I can see that becoming a problem, and he may have to come off the floor at times because he'll be a liability. Now the reason I believe the Cavs should select Wendell Carter is because he's a very safe pick. If LeBron leaves, then you have a solid foundational piece for your rebuild, and if he stays, then you have a player that can immediately contribute to winning basketball. Either way, I believe Wendell fits the Cavs situation perfectly. But that's my number 8 pick, Wendell Carter Jr. to the Cavs. Now moving on to number 9. And with the 9th pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the player I believe the New York Knicks will select is Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is a 6'7", 191-pound forward who played for Villanova this past college season. There, he averaged 17.7 points, 1.5 assists, and 5.3 rebounds. He did this while shooting 51% from the field, 43% from behind the three-point line, and 85% from the free throw line. When it comes to Mikal Bridges' strengths, the first thing you notice is how good of a defender he is. He has long arms and that helps him contest shots. He also has very quick feet and is able to guard speedier 1s and 2s. Offensively though, he's a very good shooter in catch and shoot situations. Very quick release and very consistent. He's also a very good cutter and finishes well around the rim, so he projects comfortably as a slasher. There are some concerns about him though, and I think the biggest of which is that he's not much of a ball handler. And because of this, he can't create his own shot, which really limits his ceiling. And speaking of his ceiling, the other problem that I have with him is that he doesn't have much superstar potential. He's considered a safe pick, someone who you know what you're getting. And some would argue that it's not a good idea to use a top 10 pick on a player like that. Now the reason I believe the Knicks should select him is because he'll be impactful in 2 areas of the game that they really struggled in last year. The Knicks were bottom of the league in defending the 3 and shooting the 3. And those are 2 crucial things in this modern era of basketball. Also, I think the Knicks should be pretty comfortable making the safe pick this year, considering that KP is out the majority of next season and they're going to have a high pick anyway. So that's my number 9 pick, Mikal Bridges to the Knicks. Now moving on to number 10. And with the 10th pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the player I believe the Philadelphia 76ers will select is Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges is a 6'7", 220-pound forward who played for Michigan State this past college season. There he averaged 17.1 points, 2.7 assists, and 7 rebounds. He did this while shooting 45% from the field, 36% from behind the three-point line, and 85% from the free throw line. When talking about Miles Bridges, I believe his biggest strength is his athleticism. It allows him to finish extremely well over defenders and be an aggressive rebounder. Something else Miles Bridges did well was shoot the 3. I think he was pretty consistent from there in both years at Michigan State, and he has mechanics that look like they'll translate well into the NBA. I do have a few big concerns with him though. The biggest of which is that he seems more like a tweener than he does a 3. I think his offensive skill set most closely resembles that of a modern NBA 4, but he has a very short wingspan and could really struggle to defend some taller players. Another big concern of mine is that from year 1 to year 2 at Michigan State, he didn't really improve, which leads me to believe that his ceiling is not very high. Now the reason I believe the Sixers should select him is because he provides a solid option for them off the bench, as well as the potential to grow into a good player in the future. The Sixers are a team full of young talent, so what they need to do is just draft best player available and add to their depth. And Miles Bridges is probably the best, most NBA ready player left in this draft. But that's really it for my mock draft. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and like it. If you enjoy NBA content, go ahead and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you guys next time.